that little wooded valley over there. When I was in my early teens, a body was discovered in that little ravine there. It wasn't nearly as grown over as it is today, so we're talking over 40 years ago. And it was determined it was a woman, and it was determined it was a homicide. I don't know the outcome of the case. Just pointing that out. Come join me today. I'm on my my morning hike. I did a 5-kilometer loop. It's about -9°C. Did some hills, but I want to talk about a documentary. It's called Making a Killing. It came out early last week. It's about the Kamloops Residential School and the cultural genocide. Stick around if you want to find out what's going on. Humber's not quite frozen over yet. It's going though. We keep on getting some double-digit minus temperatures. It'll freeze over. Even here, even where there is a little fast-moving water, it will freeze over. I've seen this frozen over many times. This part. Well, what I'd like to talk about today, it really got my interest last night. There was a documentary released earlier last week, and the name of the documentary is called Making a Killing. And the documentary is done by Dallas Brody. Dallas Brody is an MLA out of BC. That's a member of Legislative Assembly. It is the same position as an MPP in Ontario, member of provincial parliament. And if you don't know who Dallas Brody is, she's probably very well known out west. I heard her name before, but I didn't know much about her. I knew she was associated with the residential schools and raising concern with regards to the validity of the 215 unmarked graves they found at the Kamloops Residential School. Now, I'm going to put the full documentary at the end of my video in a screen thumbnail, and I strongly encourage people to watch it. If you don't know much about what happened in May of 2021 regarding the Kamloops Residential School, this gives you an a very in-depth breakdown of what transpired from May of 2021 till now, and the surrounding circumstances that led up to that day. Now, the Kamloops Residential School at one point was the largest residential school in Canada. It opened up in 1893 and it closed in 1978. I'll walk up here a little bit, walk and talk, get into the sun. And I heard this documentary was coming out. I didn't know when it was going to be released, and I stumbled upon it last night in another YouTube video that was talking about it. So I was hoping I could get it on YouTube, Netflix, or whatever. And it just so happens, as of this morning, it is still up on YouTube. So I don't know how long it's going to stay on YouTube, if they're going to pull it, but I'll be editing. Today is Thursday in Toronto. I'll edit this video today, and I'll try to attach it today so you can watch it. I suggest you watch it sooner than later, because I don't know how long it's going to be up. But okay, so what I want to put in the disclaimer, and forgive my heavy breathing, I'm already about 2.5 kilometers into my hike, and there's quite a bit of snow. And I just came down that hill over there, huge hill. You know, my breathing at the best of times is labored. So the disclaimer is, this is a very hot, controversial topic within Canada and other parts of the world. In May of 2021, when it was announced that 215, and I'm not going to say possible, they more or less came out and said there was mass graves unmarked graves near the residential school that were pretty much confirmed to be there. So right from the start, they conveyed to mainstream media that they were pretty much certain that it was a mass grave site. And the media, the mainstream media, namely CBC, they ran with the story, and it gained international news pretty quick. And I remember when the story came out in 2021, and at first, okay, I listened to it, and I didn't really pay much attention to it. It was during the height of COVID, so we had a lot of things going on during that time period. It was just compounded with COVID. So, but then, as it was picking up momentum within mainstream media and alternative media, I started paying more attention to it, and I started to think to myself, this doesn't sound right. Something doesn't sound right. Is that my conspiratorial thought process? Maybe it is. I don't trust the government. I don't. I'm not fully against the government, but I don't trust the government. So, so I started to raise concerns in my head, but at the same time, people in alternative news media and politicians were also starting to think that something's not exactly copacetic here. So, and one of the people that got on board early was Dallas Brody, the MLA. Now, Dallas Brody, she's a female, and her background is she has a degree from Princeton University, United States, and she has a law degree from the University of Toronto. And she's done criminal, I don't know if she's done criminal law, but she's done law for Indigenous rights. She is the type of person that I would think would be extremely left-leaning, but it turns out she was a conservative in the Conservative caucus at the time of the announcement of the Kamloops Residential School. So in Parliament, during one of her legislative assembly sessions, she just raised the point where until it is proven that there are bodies buried there, let's proceed with caution. And that blew up in her face, and it blew up very, very quickly. All the other politicians, including her own leader of her Conservative Party, denounced her and subsequently kicked her out of the party. So now she, I don't know since that point, I think she went as an independent after that. I'm not exactly sure on that. I'm just speculating. But then she became, I believe it's called 1BC, or the BC One Party. She is the head of that. And I'll put it up on the screen to correct it. And so I did a little research on her, obviously, and I watched a documentary which she's instrumental in, and she narrates the whole documentary. So now I have a new hero, and her name is Dallas Brody. She's a very strong-willed, brave woman. Anyone that does that sort of investigation, that sort of going against the grain, it takes a lot of courage, it takes a lot of resilience, because it's very easy to follow the sheep. It's hard to be the sheepdog. And that's what I consider Dallas Brody. So, but having said that, I don't have to get into all the minute details, because you're going to watch the entire documentary, and if you're unaware of what has transpired, it's going to make you very aware, and it's going to make you it could make you scared. It could make you scared with the way this country's going. And you know, I watch so many videos. I'm pretty, as you know, I'm you know, pretty entrenched in my ideologies and my belief system. And I'll tell you, I've already watched this documentary 3 or 4 times. And the first time when I was watching it, it's an hour and 21 minutes long. An hour and 21 minutes. That's all it is. So put aside that, because it'll be well worth it. And yeah, it was. I knew it was coming out. I read the book Grave Error that came out in December of 2023. I bought the book, I think 4 days after it was released. And Grave Error was a compilation of 18 researchers that put together their opinions and views on the Kamloops Residential School and other residential schools. So, and there's another book coming out now. Oh, it's called is called Dead Wrong, and I believe that's being released either this week or next week. So it's a follow-up book, and it gives more insight. But this documentary, the documentary I'm talking about, is up to date. It's current up until, I believe, September of this year. So it covers everything. But what it's going to outline, or what it outlined for me, is the corruption of the Liberal government in propping up the First Nations community to go along with a false narrative. Now, there is a member of Parliament by the name of Leah Gazin, and Leah Gazin is a member of Parliament for Winnipeg Centre, and she identifies as First Nation. She dresses like she would identify as First Nation. She wears feather earrings and dream catcher earrings. I call her Buffy NDP. So if you do a little research on her, you can make up your own determination how much of a First Nation person she really is, but she comes across as such. She has introduced legislation in the federal House, Bill C-14, to make it a criminal violation to be a residential school denier, and to say, to go against any narrative with regards to the residential cultural genocide. And that's a word you'll see in the documentary. They use the word cultural genocide, and she wants it to be put on record that if you say, or if you deny the 215 bodies of children weren't killed and buried in unmarked graves, she wants you criminally prosecuted for that. I don't know where this bill stands right now. I don't even know if it's passed. I don't know. I didn't look into that. But if it does pass, it's absolutely ludicrous. No one is denying the fact that residential schools existed. Like I said, you know, they were all across Canada, my understanding, and some of them I think closed. The last one closed in the 90s, I do believe. Now, on a side note, Mark Carney, fork-tongued lizard that he is, his father was a residential school principal in, I believe, the Northwest Territories. Now, I'm not saying Mark Carney's father had anything to do with any sort of tangle up with this Kamloops school, or the atrocities that are being claimed by the Indigenous community. Now, what I'm going to say now, not one body has been found. They brought a woman from the University of Fraser Valley. They brought her in to do ground penetrating radar, GPR. And okay, so she did the ground penetrating radar, and all she could conclude is they found anomalies. Now, when you watch a documentary on YouTube, be sure to go onto the comment section. The comment section is very interesting. You have a lot of Indigenous First Nation people that are calling bullshit. They claim to be First Nation people, and some of the comments, I'd have to believe they are First Nations people by the way they talk and their description of events. And you also get people of a scientific or a geological background that are debunking what ground penetrating radar can actually find. A lot of the First Nations chiefs, I'll come back to them in a second, they are saying that the ground penetrating radar has conclusively found the graves of children, and it's impossible, based on what these professionals that use ground penetrating radar, it's impossible to determine if there's actually human remains. So what I'm setting up here, and what the documentary goes over in detail, is the progression, the web of deceit. It's untruthful. And I after reading Grave Era, I read it December 2023 and January 2024, and you know, after reading this book, I knew it was a complete setup, a complete hatchet job, for lack of a better term. The lady with the ground penetrating radar, I'll put her up on the screen. She said they didn't find any body parts, anything like that, but it was recorded in the early 2000s. She wasn't conclusive with the actual dates, that a human tooth was found and a portion of a child's rib bone from a rib cage. Now, from reports in the documentary, it was determined that the tooth wasn't even human, and the portion of the child's rib bone is nowhere to be found. Now, I'm not gonna carry this video on too long. I don't have to do that. I'm just emphasizing that the documentary is a must watch. But I'm going to touch a little bit on the financials that were appropriated for the residential schools since May of 2021. The Kamloops School alone was given $12.1 million to excavate the perceived burial site. $12.1 million. Now, a professional on the documentary says it would take about 4 hours to exhume one grave. So $12.1 million is, in my estimation, would be plenty of money to exhume all 215 graves. As of me doing this video, not one grave has been exhumed. They put a fence around it, and they're deeming it sacred ground. So that's $12.1 million that no one knows where it's went. Don't know what happened to it. Don't know who actually received it. So that's 12.1 million. But here's a number that might be a little surprising to you. There were what was it, like 50,000 claims. I'll put the numbers up on the screen, but there was 50,000 claims thereabouts where people were given settlements, and they had charts based on the severity of your treatment within residential schools. The lowest is between, like, you know, it starts at $0 compensation to $275,000. Now, all you had to do was basically prove that you went to a residential school, and you just have to say what happened to you. It wasn't even investigated. So if you said you were essayed, you know what that is, you were physically beaten, you were verbally beaten, you were malnourished, they have charts for all this. And depending on your level, your point system, it would depend on your restitution, how much the government would give you. So the total is $5.2 billion given out. $5.2 billion were given out to around 50,000 First Nations people that claimed they were abused at various different levels. And it's the largest settlement in Canadian history, which makes sense. $5.2 billion, you know, they give $15 billion to Stellantis. I'm not saying, they got a lot. This Liberal government has a lot of money to give her, to hand out. So, and obviously in the documentary they break it down quite a bit more precisely than I am right now. And I'll point out one case. So that Kamloops School closed in 1978. So you can imagine, that's over 40 years ago, almost 50 years ago. So as you can imagine, a lot of people that were teachers there aren't alive today, but they do interview two teachers, former teachers in this documentary. One lady, they're both elderly, but one lady went on the documentary, she went on video, but the gentleman didn't want to. And the gentleman was being accused of some pretty heinous physical assaults, and so he was like, oh, well, that doesn't sound right, that's not true. But then they accused him of SA, and then he said, okay, I've had enough of this. So he went forward and he wanted to put forth his side of the story. They wouldn't let him. And one of the First Nations people claimed this specific gentleman, this teacher, former teacher, beat him up and hit him over the head with a hockey stick. Used the word hockey stick, fractured his skull, and caused permanent brain damage, leading to a learning disability. So this person apparently was settled out, given restitution, a check. Then 3 months later, his brother, the guy's brother, came forth with the exact same claims, verbatim. Hit in the head with a hockey stick, fractured skull, learning disability. So yeah, so you got to ask yourself a question. Why in 2021 did this come out? Why in 2021 did it gain so much traction in such at a rapid pace? And since that point, and this was during COVID, and since that point, they haven't looked back with regards to the First Nations community being a focal point in daily news. So what it was, it's a psychological operation to build us up, to build us up to understand that the First Nations people have been so wronged by the colonizers, the slave owners in this country, i.e. white people. They're building it up to put focus on giving natives their land back. Richmond, BC, land claims. Kamloops, BC, the entire city is under a First Nations land claim. So you look at what's going on in Toronto with street name changes. There's street name changes out in BC that you can't even pronounce the names of them. So if you were to get assaulted on a street corner, you couldn't even tell the 911 operator the name of the street you got assaulted at. So, yeah, this documentary was one of the most eye-opening documentaries I've watched, and it's all focusing around using the First Nations people as a tool to usher in liberal communism in this country. They are going to go after everyone's land. All these condos, all these parks, they're all going to be back to First Nations people. So the First Nations people think. But in essence, once that's accomplished, and I don't know how long that's going to take, but that's their goal. But once it's accomplished, the First Nations people will be there'll be another genocide, and this one will be a real one. And I'm not, and you know, don't think that I'm against First Nations people. I'm not. But they're being used again. They're being used again. There's greedy chiefs that the government deals with, and a lot of the money and a lot of the programs, it doesn't make it down to their tribes, to their band members. And in the comment section of the documentary, you'll see that there are a lot of angry First Nations people within their tribes, and they're angry with their chiefs. It's just another level of corruption. It's no different than organized crime. It's no different than street crime. You know, you go to the leader, and the leader of First Nations are the chiefs. So you pull up there and give them a big bag of money, and yeah, their way of thinking is going to change. I'm not saying all of them, but that's how human nature is. And if you haven't found that out during the last 5 years living in Canada, going through COVID, if you haven't found out that people can be very malicious and malevolent and evil, yeah, I don't know what to tell you, because I know I have. A lot of people are, most people in this world are money driven, money, greed, and power driven. And First Nations chiefs, in a lot of cases, are no different. Anyhow, thanks for watching my video, but more importantly, watch the video I attach. I got another 2 kilometers out of here, at least, maybe actually no more than that. I have about 4 kilometers out of here. Thanks for watching. Bye.